What's the worst scandal to happen at your school? My English teacher in the 11th grade was sleeping with the whole girls basketball team in exchange for straight A's. I actually failed English that year, but when that made the news my school said I didn't have to go anymore because he wasn't doing the grading properly. Everyone who had his class got a B. One year in exams days they were trying to add a new method to prevent cheating where a man from the administration comes to every class before every exam and collects students' phones while sticking a sticker with a number on each phone and giving the same sticker to the student so he can get his phone after school without anyone taking someone else's phone that looks alike or something. This was working at first and a bit preventing cheating until one day some guy sneaked into our high school and came as the man who collects the phones while he wasn't. He stole the whole high school phones and went LOL. My middle school banned hugging and hand holding during course changes because it blocked the hall. In protest, all the 8th graders stood up and hugged each other during their lunch period. A bunch of students got detention. Made the cover of the Charlotte Observer. Dude, everybody else talking about pedos and murder and your big scandal is a big group hug. A student that was in the grade above me. I was a senior. He had graduated, killed his girlfriend and buried her by the train tracks right behind the school. Freshman year, a junior accused the PE teacher of sexually assaulting her after hours in the locker room. He was put on leave and eventually got off on a technicality. Senior year, there was a freak snowstorm in April, during which the quietest and nicest stoner in our class went missing. A day later they found his car in a ditch, and a week later when the snow melted, they found his body. He'd crashed and, in his presumed high-AF state, gotten out to walk for help with no coat on. He eventually found a telephone pole and sat down against it to rest and was believed to have frozen to death in the storm. Seeing his mom at her only child's funeral still haunts me. That's really sad. Can't find other words. There was a kid whose girlfriend brought a knife into school and planned to kill herself in the bathroom. He knew her locker combination, so he took the knife and hid it in his so she wouldn't do it and wouldn't get busted. Someone snitched on him and he got expelled for having a knife on campus. Whole town was pee. A male gym teacher diddling some girls volleyball players. Principal got fired for threatening teachers if they didn't produce enough A's and driving a grade inflation scandal. That and the usual drugs and such. The first kid sounds like a good guy. Didn't deserve that at all. Schools can be dumbasses sometimes, I guess. Girl A decided to fight Girl B in class. Girl A ripped Girl B's real hair out, broke her nose, and crippled her. Girl B was sent to the emergency room. Girl A was suspended for 2 weeks. They were both in 7th grade. When I was in 5th grade, the male teacher I'd had in 4th grade was fired for helping a high school cheerleader undress. Looking back, he was a creeper. That's quite a big step up. A kid in my senior year short story class, who sat directly behind me, was charged with the stabbing, beheading and burning of one of his friend's drug dealer. I remember the day like it was yesterday, sitting in my short story class when my teacher came in tears because she just heard the news. Students didn't find out about it until later. I actually have a friend who testified in his trial because he purchased the murdering materials at the hardware store she worked at. Crazy, man. We had a computer teacher football assistant coach who was just blasted all day, had so many DUIs he had to get rides to work, but was the cousin of the superintendent so he kept his job. Let's just say that when he crashed a student's car in the parking lot because he convinced them to let him borrow it, that was the beginning of the end of it. It was a small town. The scandal is that the super tried to cover it up by trying to convince the kid to take the heat for it. To no one's surprise, the kid was not convinced. They let him stay on as super for another 2 years. I would have taken a huge bribe, then reported them for both. This happened between my sister and brother graduating, so it would have been 1996 or 1997. The HS Ag teacher started dating a student at some point. Everyone knew about it and the parents consented. Our HS was, and is, small enough to still participate in senior trips, and the AG teacher went along as a chaperone when his GF was a senior. They shared a hotel room, when I believe the student was still technically a 17-year-old minor. At the time I remember my parents being rather put off by it, but they still hired the guy as a summer farmhand. I don't remember if he was fired or stepped down. But by the time I made it to HS we had a different ag teacher. They got married and had a child, divorced maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Their kid goes to our HS now. I don't know why it wasn't a huge deal at the time, but no one really raised a stink or threatened to call the authorities. Today it feels like a case of grooming by a predatory farm boy. Of course, in many states 16 is the age of consent, but almost everywhere, as far as I'm aware, has laws that state people in positions of authority, teachers, coach, policemen, clergy, etc., cannot do anything to those under their care, an abuse of authority equivalent to forcing someone. The caretaker killed 2 local girls and hid them in the school. He tried using the clay kiln to burn them. He later dumped them a few miles away. Some highlights. 1. The chorus teacher got caught looking at Lolita P on his school computer. 2. This kid had nudes of his ex that his friend sent to a bunch of people in school, but he was 18 and she was 14 or 15. So he got expelled and I believe he was charged with distributing child pornography. We had a whole assembly because of it where the cops came and told us they could see everything on our phones. 3. A kid in my grade and another girl, same girl as in the story above, actually, had sex in the bathroom. I learned about it from my band teacher. Band teacher spreading rumors FFS. In middle school, 8th grade early 2000s, one of the hot girls sent a couple nude pictures to her BF and it wasn't long until half the school had them. Police ended up becoming involved to make sure any old copies were destroyed. In high school there was a little scandal involving the teachers and a teachers club called the Hot Tub Club. Faculty members that had hot tubs would host a weekly hot tub party with other hot tub owners. Turns out they were all getting wasted and having a swinging party every Wednesday. Somebody's spouse found out about it and there was a huge exodus of hot tub teachers my senior year. Kid made a chlorine bomb and threw it in the trash can at lunch. Lockdown. Bomb squad. Every single kid and faculty member out on the field in 95 degrees weather for 2+ hours until parents could show up to pick up their kids. What the frick is wrong with people? A teacher had an affair with the students. She was arrested and released on bail. Then a few days later she sent an email to other teachers saying it wasn't an affair but that she was actually being raped by the student and blackmailed. She even attached screenshots of texts. Later that day, she murdered her husband and committed suicide. Holy fuck, that's a sad and wild story. First week of high school. Pay class. The first section was swim. Wasn't my class, but the class after. This kid was playing a game with his friends in the water. Who could hold their breath the longest? He was going up for air and hit head on the pointy part of the gutter, and never made it to the surface. Friends didn't notice. Teacher didn't notice. Eventually football players coming back to the locker rooms noticed. He ended up dying. Teacher was fired, although I wouldn't fully blame him as he was attending and teaching kids who didn't know how to swim or weren't strong swimmers. One adult for over 60 kids? That's the school's fault. I was in 4th or 5th grade and someone sketched in the middle school bathroom not to go on school Friday or I will bang bang. This was then brought to the attention of the county and state police and we didn't have school that day and the police searched everyone's lockers for a firearm. Probably the time a girl gave a guy a BJ in the bathroom. The guy filmed it and sent it to his friend. His friend sent all around the school. Eventually the police had to get involved because the one guy was guilty of distribution of child pornography. Had something similar happen at my school, but since it was a private Catholic school the girl was brought in front of the whole school board for essentially a trial and was expelled. The boys didn't even get detention. Our football defense coordinator raped a large number of young boys of a long period of time and no one did a thing about it. My department allowed the baseball team to line up and she gave them all BJs. Happened years ago and confirmed by veteran co-workers I knew. Recently, some of the boys that graduated years ago decided to inform the proper authorities. She was transferred to another school. Still works in the district. How has she got a job FFS? My graphics teacher was married to my maths teacher, and one night he killed her during a domestic dispute. She was apparently having an affair and started taunting him about it in an argument while waving a fire poker at him. He grabbed it off her, hit her over the head and killed her. He was sent to prison for manslaughter, not murder, as the court accepted there was no premeditation. My mum was also a teacher at the school and friends with both of them, so it had a big impact on my family as well as the school. That's just sad for everyone involved. A girl in my middle school was telling people she had a hit list of people she was going to kill, got caught with the list, and was sent to a hospital for a while. She came back a few years later in high school. History teacher disappeared in the night with the French teacher's wife, and the other French teacher made national news for sexually abusing boys. Well, French is the language of love. A overachieving student in my year went nuts and pooped in a bag in a teacher's classroom. She also thought she could run up trees. Turns out she didn't, end up skipping a few years and going to uni early like she was predicted to do. The balance of genius is on a very thin edge. Had a strict dress code that if the girls broke had to change into clothes provided by the school. Turns out vice principal had a camera going in the dressing room. This kid was taking his GCSEs, important exams in England until you get older and realize they mean frick all. Whilst at an exam, some kids got onto his phone, went onto his notes and found a 4,000 word document consisting of his sexual fantasies with other girls in his year. Clearly paid attention in English as there was some clever wordplay comparing his dong to some world famous landmarks. The screenshots found their way into a lot of group chats. There were about 20 odd screenshots. To put into context how long it was, and it basically acted as a vague repellent for the rest of his time at the school. Important exams in England until you get older and realize they mean frick all. Perfectly defined. Back in high school, the entire football team was almost expelled because one girl gave BJs to every single one of the players in the locker rooms. Supposedly they were all in a circle and the girl was just going around to each person. The kicker? The girl's brother was on the team, and he let it happen. My high school guidance counselor fricked a science teacher's wife and everyone knew about it. They got a divorce. Both teachers still work at the same school to this day, and students will never ever let it go. The story has been handed down from year to year. Kids are brutal. During middle school, a few kids sold weed and someone that bought some smoked it in the building, which was just stupid. The kid that sold it to him didn't want to get in trouble, so he pulled the fire alarm so people wouldn't find the kid. We all got to go home afterwards. Honestly, that's some pretty quick thinking. Obviously not very responsible, but the kid that pulled the fire alarm had some pretty sharp self-preservation instincts. Long story short, the principal got arrested for hiding cameras in the bathroom. This was back in elementary. He was a total freaking creep. What the frick, shocked at how many pedo stories there are. The Harlem Shake was a craze. We had an array teacher who desperately enjoyed being the popular teacher, so he got in on the craze. Invited 40 pupils from my year to his classroom at lunch and filmed his own Harlem Shake video, which in itself wouldn't have been against safeguarding rules. Thing is, he also taught sex ed, so everyone got into his cupboard before the start of the video for props. The video was essentially a group of 14-year-olds throwing dildos and condoms around the room while he, of his own accord, grinded on a life-size cutout of the poop. He was suspended under investigation for half a year but surprisingly kept his job. He was a lot more professional when he returned. While he, of his own accord, grinded on a life-size cutout of the poop. When you Sinead O'Connor yourself. A girl died in the pool during an event at the school. The swim teacher was blamed and was prosecuted. The girl who died was at my sister's class. Both were 7 at the time. That happened over 10 years ago, but the parents haven't had another child since. She was their only kid. That's horrible. Poor people. A video leaked of a girl fricking herself with a spatula. We called her Spatula Girl. Funny at the time. Makes me feel bad now. A guy in year 10 made a statement that the more compact a group of people are, the higher the death toll would be in a shooting, and we were genuinely talking about shootings and somehow people mistook it that he was gonna do it. It was a joke and everyone was playing along at first. Cut to 11 months later. He was in year 11. The whole school knows. Rumors got out. The truth was beyond freaking twisted and changed to something different. Kids were actually scared to come in. Parents were teachers were anxious. They had to search the kid. They kicked him out 9 days before he finished for good. Was still allowed to do exams but had to do separately from everyone else. The police were involved and it made the news, but the news article is complete fake and bulls. He also wasn't allowed to prom. This was around 4-5 years ago. He told me he was doing a lot better now. He went to a better school for 6th form. He says whilst he has moved on with his life, he will never forgive the bastards. Also, we live in England and guns are much harder to get, especially to the average person who knows nothing about how to get guns. That's freaking horrible, poor lad. Glad he moved somewhere better. Some dude with a tiny little pecker sent a picture of it, unsolicited, to a girl, and she sent it to all his friends. Wasn't long before like half the school had seen it. Wasn't long. I see what you did there. 3 come to mind. 1. Principal of the HS and director of athletics got caught embezzling money from the school to their bank accounts. They got caught after 50k went missing from the school's bank. 2. Bomb threat. Got Seth whenever we went in. Metal detectors. Bomb dogs. The works. 3. Couple kids invited an African American into their Twitter group called Golfenners and were saying stuff like repeal the 13th to her. She tracked down the school and made a complaint. Made local news. My former high school got on the news for having a history teacher lie for 4 years about being a decorated war hero. Guy claimed to have not 1, but 2 Purple Hearts, among other things, and never even served a day in the military. But it gets juicier. The truth came out because his ex-wife exposed him, sending evidence he was making it all up to local news stations and the school. Why'd she do it? The history teacher was having an affair with another teacher in my school. We had a lot of weird teachers at my school, but I think this story shows just how much the administration hardly vetted teachers. Like, holy crap. We also had a guidance counselor get the boot for being a racist, but that's another story that didn't get as much publicity. A girl gave a guy a BJ behind a building. Her braces got stuck on his dong. He pulls back, dong bleeding, punches her in the mouth. She goes and tells the principal. Parents get called in. He yells, "She cut my dong," while the door was open. Everyone knew then. We had a few. Some standouts. Student hid a pregnancy from her parents. She ended up giving birth at home and killed the baby. Teachers sexually harassed students. Students engaged in sexual acts at the nearby church, where all our masses occurred, and we, the student body, were then banned for having our masses at the church. When in middle school, the school forced us to give our phones to the vice principal, and they would stay there locked during the day. They got stolen, around 120 smartphones. This locking up can backfire. One year we got together and all agreed to set an alarm on our phones for the same time, at max volume. After that they just said the phones had to be turned off, though. When I was in 3rd grade, I believe, one of the principals at my school got arrested for disability fraud or something like that. Then when I was in the 7th grade, one of the teachers got arrested for being a pedophile. Seems like a common theme in this comment section, lol. Physical education teacher hit the principal on the head because he protested the students being treated roughly during sports class. I think the principal might have had a decent point there. My religion teacher was relocated after rumors spread that he sexually harassed a female student and hit a male student. I never found out if those rumors were true, but I mean there had to be something because teachers don't just get relocated in the middle of a school year. He was in, but I wouldn't put it past him. In Germany it's super hard to get fired as a teacher. I think you'd need a prison sentence to actually get fired. That's why he was only relocated. Here I was thinking the guy hacking a teachers around and receiving exam answers was a big deal. This thread proved otherwise. There was this guy in high school, pretty shy, didn't have too many friends, was always trying to fit in, kind of a poser but in an insecure way. I'll call him Pumpkin Pie for privacy reasons. So one day Pumpkin Pie had the genius idea to impress his class and make them like him more, to get the chem geography teacher and retrieve the exam question from his school account. He used a USB stick with a program on it that retrieves saved passwords from most browsers. Chrome, i.e., Edge wasn't a thing yet. Firefox, etc. He waited for the perfect moment to plug it in. The teacher was taking a quick bathroom break. The whole class saw it and he made up some excuse. Don't remember what he said. Everyone kind of forgot about it. He checked the teacher's school account every day for a couple months, until finally the teacher uploaded the exam questions. Pumpkin Pie downloaded the exams. Then, and this is where he fricked up, he gave them to people in his class that he liked. Those people started talking, and eventually people from other classes started asking Pumpkin Pie if he could get the answers for their class too. So then exams came round. He asked his classmates not to make it too obvious that they knew all the answers. Of course, they did. They all had way higher grading than usual. One day he received a call from the school, which never happened before. Basically they said, "Hi Pumpkin Pie, you need to come to the school and talk to the principal right now." He asked why, and then his heart dropped as she said, "Because it looks like you committed fraud." Apparently they saw the discrepancy in the grades and went looking in the logs of the teacher's account access and found that it was accessed from an IP address which Pumpkin Pie also logged in from. Dumb sucker didn't even use a VPN. Then he realized how much he had fricked up. See, he had just turned 18, which meant that he would be treated as an adult should the police ever get involved. Anyway, he went to school and had a really hard decision to make. Either the whole class would have to redo the exam, or he gave the names of the people he gave the exams to and only they would have to retake it. He chose the latter, and everyone hated him for it. Him and the classmates involved weren't invited to the graduation ceremony. Oh, and the hack teacher was considering pressing charges for privacy violation. Somehow he managed to convince the teacher not to. He is so freaking lucky. Anyway, he was already insecure and at this point he just could look any of his classmates in the eyes anymore. He ended up moving countries eventually, and now he uses a dumb alias online whenever he talks about it. Something with a pumpkin. Not sure why at this point since it's pretty obvious he's talking about himself. All I had was someone crap in the urinal at my school, and you are absolutely right. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.